do South Africans think about the country's media? And how do editors ensure that facts and sources are verified before stories are published? What is the difference between factual and sensational reporting? And how safe are journalists covering FeesMustFall and other violent protests? What time is it? It's question time. Hello and welcome to the show. My name is Apartheid. 39 years ago today, the Apartheid regime clamped down on resistant journalists and political activists. The World and Weekend World, Veritate and 17 Black consciousness organizations were banned. Commonly known as Black Wednesday, the day is celebrated annually on the 19th October. While journalists and the nation mark the day, South African National Editors Forum says South Africa's constitution has freedom of the press and other media as part of its cornerstones. However, SANEF does not approve of some bills which they consider undesirable, including the Protection of State Information Bill and the Media Appeals Tribunal. The Editors Forum has also decried the recent attacks on journalists covering the FeesMustFall protests. We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers are on screen: 089-110-4210. At question time 24 is our Twitter handle. Our guests today, Katie Katapodis. She is the Deputy Chairperson at SANEF, and Eric Naki is the Senior Political Journalist at the Citizen newspaper. And we're talking about the significance of Black Wednesday and media freedom. But indeed, we'll be delighted to hear your calls. Tell us, what do you think of us, basically, as the media? What comes to mind when we talk South African media? What are your thoughts? 089-110-4210. Let me welcome my guest, Katie. Good to have you once again here. Well, Black Wednesday, I'm not wearing black, pardon me. But in 2016, 29 years, 30, is it what, 39 years
1977.
Now? Yeah.
Yes, that's the dating question.
So, do we have a lot to really write home about?
I think we do, Paul. I think South Africa does have a relatively free media that's able to do its work unhindered. Yeah. We do, however, as we commemorate this day of Black Wednesday, we do have to look at where we are in the country and look at the landscape at the moment and what's happening with journalists and journalism. And there are a few concerns that we must raise. You mentioned some of them in your introduction, some of the attacks on journalists, not just covering FeesMustFall, but we've seen an increasing number of our journalists who are being targeted during service delivery protests or protests by communities, either by community members themselves or by SAPS officials or private security, as we've seen in the case of FeesMustFall. So a few concerning issues for us that we really need to sit up and take note of.
You know, funny enough, I mean, we celebrate this day today, or we mark it today, a day after, was it Mandoza's family, Zwakembuli, you know, and Tebogo from Massa, went down very hard on the media. So it would appear you're losing it somewhere.
Well, you know, I don't know if we can say that the media is losing it some way. It all depends on exactly what we're talking about, what the concerns are. And I think we need to narrow it down to individual media houses or journalists. And we've always said as SANEF, if there are people with complaints about the media, and I'm sure Eric will agree with me as well, it needs to be taken up with the journalists and with the editors in questions, and people have recourse. There's strong recourse and action that can and should be taken should things go wrong. But as SANEF, we always encourage responsible and ethical journalism. For us, it's at the very core of what we do as journalists.
Darnak, coming from a print media yourself, your headline in your papers today,
yes,
it's not saying what the minister said to the NPA.
Yes. And what happens with newspapers, you know, sometimes we get information from various sources, and as newspapers we gather some news in our own way, not in the way that other people gather. It's what we call the angle So we often get different angles as newspapers.
Yes.
It's often that newspapers write about the same thing, the same angles, but sometimes they are different. That is how we approach this craft.
Yeah, but I mean, let's talk about your headline. I mean, you say Pravin tells the NPA, get lost.
Yes.
He never said that.
Yes. You see, it depends on what he said. In the way you craft your sentence, your introduction, and how you attract people to the newspaper, you can say that you get lost. But if you read it inside, it won't necessarily, what is on the headline, necessarily be like, I say get lost. But
so you are
would have
misleading.
said something that is in line with that.
So you are misleading.
It's not.
It is.
It's not.
I mean, if I'm buying your paper based on the headline that says Pravin said get lost, and in the story there's nothing, to that effect, you misled me.
I don't believe so. That is what people always perceive, that the headlines are misleading.
Yes.
But on the main, if you read the fine print there, you'll find that issue is there.
Yeah, but why
Although
do I
it's
have
not
to
put
go for
in
the
those
fine
words.
print? Why do I have to go to the fine print in order for me to really get the gist? But also, one thing which I must raise with you.
Yes.
Newspapers, you're getting away with murder. You go and write a story about Mpo on the front page, and then I prove to you that what you have written is not correct, take you to the ombudsman, whatever, and then you come back 6 months down the line on page 13, matter of fact, a little paragraph ikinyana there, then you say, yeah, we got it wrong, we apologize for the harm and whatever.
Mpo, when you come to a story for the second time like that, you are correcting something. You don't necessarily have to write the whole story. Remember, when it was on the front page, it was the full story.
Yes.
With all the details, you see. But because the press ombudsman has identified a certain area, you zoom in on that particular area. If your correction is to come, it must be on that. That is why now the corrections tends to be shorter than the original story.
Okay, I'll come to you, Kate. Let's take Mulas, you are in Vereniging.
Oh.
Hi.
I'm going to, mine is a very short one.
Okay.
In terms of the media reporting.
Yes.
I want to mention this, and then this is my personal observation.
All right.
On corruption.
Yes.
I give my media 100% in exposing corruption in South Africa. In terms of regime change, I will stay put because nobody has ever came forward with evidence to prove that the media is actually contributing to this notion of regime change.
Okay.
Number 3, I'm concerned though with my fellow journalists there.
Yes.
They are not sometimes asking very critical questions at the right time.
Okay. When
they are interviewing most powerful people, in particular in the political space. Lastly, I want to ask them to continue to do a good job, and then they must actually stay away from this of getting used by these politicians, because it's going to harm their reputation. But so far, I'm very happy with what the journalists are doing.
Okay, Mlatse, thank you very much for the call. Well, I just want to rectify or correct what I said initially. Didn't say get lost, go jump. Well, that's what was said. Well, it's written there, but you won't get go jump in anything which the minister has said.
I want to say something there, though. The definition of go jump, and of course I'm not here to speak on behalf of the citizen or defend its editorial policies or its headline, but the definition of go jump, I imagine, Eric, is go away, fly a kite, that kind of thing, which I think that headline is not entirely inaccurate at all. If we think about what the minister has indeed said to Sean Abrams, I'm not going to respond to you. I know that you've invited me to give a submission, but actually my previous arguments refer, I'm not saying anything.
Well, but let us be fair. Go jump, right? Then what is written there says the battle line between Finance Minister Pravin Gordhan and then DPP Shaun Abrahams was formally drawn yesterday when Gordhan declined to submit a representation and asked Abrahams to withdraw the fraud charges against him. Asked to withdraw. Not even to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to entertain you and all that. Why can't we get, let me see if we can just get it properly on shot there. Yeah, that's the one. But why can't we just get accurate headlines?
Yeah, you see, when you look at that headline and you look at the story, the tabloid style of writing tends to have a small bit from the story on the front page. You find the entire story, 90% of the story is inside. So it actually means that, as it tells, go to page, what's page 3? Yeah. Yeah, it means then you have to read that and go to page 3.
So you're pushing sales here?
Not necessarily.
Okay, let's take Mushere. Mushere, you're in Pretoria. Welcome.
Yes, how are you this afternoon?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, my brother.
All right. Of course, the media, they're pushing a certain narrative. If you can, I watch also a number of television channels where you watch your NN7. Normally, you can see that it's a Gupta family television channel where if there is an issue about the president, the whole day they'll keep flashing on the screen the issue of president saying so and so is saying the president must do. You watch ENW, they only flight in the certain type of story where a number of people who maybe are against the government will be interested in the story. You go to SABC, of course they will flight some of the where community service activities are done. That's where you'll see the news. You go to the newspapers, of course, if they have to apologize, that's where they will write the story in the middle of the paper in a small print, where they know that not everybody will be able to interested, because the print are very small where a lot of people won't read the story. But when it's the headline, because they want to sell their papers, they will put it front page where it will attract everybody, especially if you're talking about celebrities and your president, the likes of people who are prominent figures in the community. But if someone in the small community has done something that is attractive, they will put it in the middle. If it's an unknown person, you will never see that in the front of the paper.
Sure. Thank you very much, Mushere, for the call.
Cheers.
Has the ANC government been good to you as the media?
That's a difficult question because it depends what we mean by good. Has the ANC government been good to the media? There's always been very good communication with the ANC government and SANEF, for example. Last year, this time, in fact, exactly a year ago, we met with President Jacob Zuma. We had a discussion around Black Wednesday. We spoke about the Protection of State Information Bill that's currently sitting on his desk. So there's always been an open dialogue between us. We have lekgotlas quite often with government, with government and with SANEF and with senior editors. It's important for us that we keep that communication open all the time.
The bill in question, you just didn't mention that the same bill which we as SANEF managed to get what we wanted out of it.
I don't know if we can say we managed to get what we wanted. Significant changes were made to this proposed bill, and SANEF welcomed those changes when they happened. But we still believe that the bill shouldn't be signed into law. And we actually call on President Jacob Zuma to please refer it to the Constitutional Court instead of signing it into law, because we do believe that once he reads through it, he too will note, we hope that he too will note, that it's not a bill that should be signed into law.
Itumeleng, you're in Pretoria. Welcome.
Thank you, Mpo. You know, when I went to the university, I wanted to do journalism, but I ended up doing another course.
Okay.
And today I'm happy I'm not a journalist.
Why?
Because I think journalism has lost its moral compass. You know, Mpo, there was one story that I read about you last month in the Sunday newspapers about SABC, you not switching off your phone on air, you're not listening to anyone. Do you know that story? Do you know that story?
The lies, yes.
Yeah, so things like that, you don't know whether it's true, you don't know what is happening. You saw Mandoza's, widow crying,
yes.
Things like that. I think, you know, right now, journalism, they will say that doing a good job. I mean, who won't do a good job dealing with Jacob Zuma? I mean, Jacob Zuma is the easiest person that you can deal with. You say you're careless. But I think if it was not Jacob Zuma, there'll be very much worse. And I want to ask the lady of SANEF, how far is South Africa with citizen journalism?
Okay.
You know, there's a show on Al Jazeera, the Listening Post.
Yes.
They talk about other journalists in other countries, how those countries deal with those journalists. And then one time they showed South Africa and Jacob Zuma. They rated South Africa as one of the countries that it is against not oppressing journalists.
Okay.
But they say they are moving on a direction of starting to oppress journalists. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sidimilling. Well, how far is South Africa?
With citizen journalists. You know, I think we've got citizen journalists every single day. Everywhere there are stories unfolding. We see it with WITS, for example.
Yes.
We see it with all our universities, for that matter. When something's happening, we just need to take to social media, to Twitter in particular, to see how South Africans have taken to citizen journalists. Our responsibility as the formal sector of the media, because, by the way, I encourage citizen journalism. I think it's a great part of communities. But our responsibility as professionals and as formal media practitioners is to make sure that we don't just say whatever Mpho is tweeting from Sandton is absolute fact. And we need to check, and we need to double check, and we need to confirm that what Mpho has seen in Sandton has indeed happened.
Okay, let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll talk about the lies in the media. 089-110-4210.
When we were little, life felt big, with something new to discover around every corner. Yet somehow, living small became the norm, until we remember how great living big really is. At Macro, we're still big on being big. Big on convenience, experience, range, and savings. Big on the moments that matter. Rediscover how beautiful it is to be big on life.
Welcome back. You're still watching Question Time. We're talking Black Wednesday today. Tabo, you are in Pretoria. Welcome.
Good evening, Mpho. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for the call, Tabo.
I'm fine. I've got a question for the SANEF Deputy President.
Yes.
I've got a racism story that I approached a couple of journalists, and not even a single one was able to assist me, to a point where I started thinking that maybe they've been captured by the people that I'm alleging.
Okay.
So how can I get help in that regard?
All right, Tabo, thank you very much. Well,
I certainly think what Tabo can do, Mpho, is, depending on who he's already been to, but to approach more newsrooms, more organizations, more newspapers, outline his story and say exactly what it's about. It's difficult without the details to say, have they been captured by the other side? We don't know who the other side is here. But I think South Africa's got a lot of very important stories to tell, and our race issues in the country are hugely important at this moment. Now, I think, more than ever. So if he has a story to tell, he must keep pushing. He must keep going to newsrooms, approaching journalists and editors, and see if there is something they can do to assist him with his story. Bearing in mind that not everyone's story may be accepted by a particular editor for whatever reason. And that obviously is up to that newsroom.
let me come to you. Print journalism. We'll come back to that citizen journalism story. But print journalism, a lot of lies. I mean, the caller referred to a story about me and my executive producer earlier. You know, total lies. What do we do about such things?
It depends really on which paper is it. Sometimes some newspapers approach these things differently. For instance, the serious publications will never just write a story like that. But sometimes some tabloids
Yes.
do go out of their way to get information from sources that sometimes even you doubt. But the serious papers, there are rules. For instance, that you must have at least not less than 2 sources, or not. There mustn't be one source of information. Some even go to 3 sources.
And what if you create those yourself?
The editor would take you to task.
Oh, the journalist should be fired.
Yeah, should be fired. The editors are very strict about that. Very few editors just keep a kind of a laissez-faire approach to that. Because they know at the end of the day they might be sued, you know, for writing information that is not correct.
But Mpo, I have to ask you, did you lodge a complaint with that paper? Did you go to the press ombudsman?
No, not yet.
Okay, because I think you should, and I would encourage you, particularly as SANEF, to say you've got to do that, because if something wrong you've got to right that wrong, and I think you must write to the editor, write an open letter, go to the press ombudsman if you don't get any joy. You spoke about apologies earlier. We believe at SANEF that apologies should be given prominence depending on where they are in the story, and we've seen lots of headway, by the way, in the media.
Yeah.
We've seen lots of newspapers actually doing better and better online publications as well, but really I would encourage you to lodge a complaint.
Okay, Rihanna, you are in George in the Western Cape.
Yes, and I want to speak about journalism because it's something that I feel very passionately about.
Go ahead, Rihanna.
I think what I want to say, it's not the 5 principles, it's about the omissions of what journalists are supposed to do to notify the public. What people need to know, everybody says, hoeveel cost it? How much does it really cost to put a student through university? People don't know that. Now, a real journalist will go and look for that information and go and ensure that the public knows and knows how much this body that is giving the government's money to the students, how they're actually managing it. What criteria are they using? Is most of the money going to pay themselves?
Okay.
Those are some of the things that's extremely important for me, and it's the journalism by omission.
Okay.
That I feel is a problem here.
Okay.
And also the fact that journalists, all I see journalists doing is running around with microphones, cameras, and checking through Facebook. And I don't think that's correct. They must do a bit of work, investigate what is really happening. It's a shock for me to find out that some students are sleeping in toilets. Where's the money going to?
Rihanna, thank you very much for that question. Well, I think the other thing that we should also look at is how do we balance, I hear she's complaining about journalists that are on Facebook and Twitter and all that, but at the same time, modern times demand of journalists to do that, because that's also what we somehow rely on as well.
Yes. You see, it's important. The social media plays a very important role in news gathering these days.
Yes.
You won't believe that many newspapers and even radio and TV stations, they've got even people that are full-time monitoring the social media.
Yes.
The reason being that they are actually looking for something like tip-offs about stories.
Yes.
You'll see how the media, especially now the online, they are using some pictures that are taken by the public, like video clips or something like that, that they bring along. They take it from there, from the social media.
Okay. Kati, finally, how do we compare South Africa with, for instance, our neighbors in Zimbabwe?
With regards to media and media freedom,
we're
lucky. We're lucky in Paul when we have to look at our neighbors in Zimbabwe. I know many colleagues, industry colleagues, who are unable to report freely, who've got to use pseudonyms, who go into hiding from time to time because they're worried about arrest. So yes, we definitely compare favorably to our Zimbabwean neighbors, and that's the point, especially of SANEF, especially when we remember days like Black Wednesday, to say we've come such a long way. Let's keep this, let's maintain our freedoms, and let's always do that, because with freedoms come responsibilities, and I'm always very keen to stress that. So let's ensure that we keep a fair, responsible and free media in South Africa.
Thank you very much for the time, and well, I can't say happy Black Wednesday, but
happy media freedom.
Happy media freedom. Yeah, that's
you.
better. But that was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Have a hot.